Welcome back. If you're new around here, I'm Justin, and I'm sharing my journey building our new coffee and dessert brand, Doodles Dessert Club. So, let's get into it. Now, in my last video, I said that in this upload, I would walk you through our investment deck. But over the last week, something pretty exciting has happened. Our pre-seed round has officially gone live. This has been a really exciting moment that has been months in the making. And as you can probably imagine, it's been a busy few weeks, but I wanted to update you on how we've gone about launching and the early conversations that we've been having. So we launched our SEIS and EIS approved pre-seed round just over a week ago, before the team and I had really even finalized all of our investment materials. This is because we'd begun to receive some pretty early interest from people within our network, and we really wanted to capitalize on that interest. So our deck and information memorandum has been something of a movable feast over the last couple of weeks, as we've had to tweak it and refine it in between our outreach based on the feedback that we've had. But the reality is, a deck is never really done, and we'd prefer to get the word out there now rather than sitting on our hands, tweaking our deck until it's perfect. The initial feedback that we've had from our early investor calls has been really positive. We're being taken seriously by some pretty notable and influential people in investor circles, which has been really encouraging. Because obviously, we believe in our brand and our concept for Doodles Dessert Club, but until you start putting yourself out there and seeing how people respond, you don't really know how you're going to be received. I've also had some really positive feedback to people who've watched this content, either people who appreciate the transparency that we're approaching this journey with, or investors who have come across these videos and have really taken an interest in what we're building, which again has been really encouraging. This is a totally novel experience for me, both my first time raising equity investment and my first time really getting out of my comfort zone and putting myself out there in my small little corner of the social media landscape. So I really appreciate the feedback that I've had so far and the feedback that I continue to receive. So thank you for that. Something I've learned from the first few investor calls that we've had is that the order in which we're approaching fundraising is not typical to what consumer brand investors would expect. Most investors would expect you to have an operating model to demonstrate what your business does before they would consider investing. However, those consumer brands, in my experience, usually have to build out their franchise model retrospectively, grafting operations onto their existing business model that might not be optimized to scale in that way. The great thing about Doodles is that we have a team with over 95 years of experience in franchising, hospitality, and product development. So we've already proved that we can build successful brands. So we are baking the franchisability into the model from day one. And as a team, we've got a fantastic track record of serving our communities the very best coffee, cookies, and small batch ice cream. At Doodles, we're taking the very best bits of those 95 years of experience and we're distilling it down into a lean and scalable model built around incredible, award-winning recipes and great customer experiences. That's our traction, and we've got the sales and the awards to prove it. Our initial outreach to angel investors has been quite targeted as we try to hone our pitch and fine-tune our approach before we begin broadening our outreach outside of our immediate network. Our ideal investor is someone who has built and exited a business already, or just someone who really likes what we're building at Doodles. Perhaps someone that doesn't even consider themselves to be a traditional investor or an angel, but is really interested and excited about what we're building. Because the most important thing that we're looking for in an investor is someone who shares our values. We'd love to find someone who has experience in scaling consumer brands, but that is secondary to finding an investor who shares the same values as us, which is transparency, being customer centric, fostering community, and building something truly scalable that can help uplift the UK's high street with every sip, scoop, and crunch. The problem with trying to raise angel investment is that these angels don't all congregate in one place. They're not a network, they don't show up on a database, and they don't really market themselves. So it means that we can't just do a broad scattergun approach to market the opportunity to invest in Doodles. But that's probably a good thing, because it means every single bit of outreach that we've done so far has been very considered and very personal. And the plan is to scale that approach as we scale our outreach. One thing about me is I like to move fast. I like to set big targets and aggressive deadlines and get things done as quickly and effectively as possible. So one slight frustration I found in the early days is that sometimes it takes a bit of time to get a call back. This is even after we've had really positive feedback about what we're doing from investors who are showing a genuine interest. We're dealing with very busy people, and sometimes we're finding we might have to wait a couple of weeks for a response to an email, or we might have to book a meeting 2 to 3 weeks in advance. So I'm having to temper my expectations on how quickly this process moves. So let's get into the details. How much are we raising? What are we spending it on? And what are the projected returns for our investors? So we're raising £300,000 for 15% equity of Doodles Dessert Club. That'll be 15% of the business that operates the flagship store, the online dessert business, and the franchising business, which will recruit, manage, and support our franchisees, and will receive royalties from their store sales. Of the £300,000 that we're raising, we'll be spending £175,000 on building out and marketing our first Doodles Dessert Club store. This store will be our flagship, and it will be used to model and showcase our brand to future franchisees. We have fully costed the fit out, and we have a specialist store fit out team ready to go as soon as we have raised the funds we need and secured our first location. Then, of the remaining £125,000, we'll be investing £45,000 building out and marketing our online dessert store. This will allow us to ship our ice cream, coffee, and cookies nationwide from day one, and we'll be doing limited drops, seasonal specials, and subscription offers. And then finally, we've budgeted £20,000 for professional fees and around about £60,000 for working capital, including a cash flow buffer and contingency funds. It's really, really important that you have these contingency funds in place so that you can prepare for the unexpected, because the last thing you want to do is have your entire financial models undermined by a single event that was completely out of your control and unpredicted, and you didn't have the contingency funds in place to be able to ride it out. We have full comprehensive 5-year financial models that get really granular with these figures, but that's a top line overview of how we forecast the investment to be spent. Our forecasts project us hitting 30 stores by year 5, with around £20 million in annual system sales for the business, and a projected 6x return over 5 years for our investors. Now, as I mentioned, this model is being pulled together by our team, combining our insights from our 95 years of experience, so I'm confident that the model is sound. In fact, I'd suggest that these forecasts are actually slightly conservative. That said, we've also stress tested the model, and even our stress tested model shows returns of over 4x over a 5-year period. So, we feel very optimistic about the strength and validity of what we're building, and the early feedback that we've had seems to share in our enthusiasm for the model. One question I've had a couple of times is why I'm choosing to share all of this, because at this stage in the process, you normally want to keep your cards close to your chest so that someone doesn't copy you, and there's also the risk of looking a bit silly if it doesn't work out. I think, for me, I believe that a rising tide lifts all boats. And my hope is that in sharing this, it helps to demystify what it takes to start a business and encourages other budding entrepreneurs out there to start their own dessert company. The UK market is massive, and the UK high street needs more great British brands being built by people with vision and passion. I wish when I started my first business that I could have seen behind the scenes of how the brands that I love were being built. So my plan is radical transparency throughout the process so that we can learn from each other and hopefully build some amazing brands. And yes, there's a risk that we're unable to raise the funds and I look a bit daft for putting myself out there, but that's a chance I'm willing to take. So that's it for now. Our pre-seed round is officially live and we're actively raising investment. Keep watching to follow our journey to see how we're getting on raising our round and finding investors. If you're finding this series useful, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. And if you're an investor and you're interested in what we're building at Doodles Dessert Club, email me on justin@justindooley.com or find me on LinkedIn. With that said, if you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Take what works for you, leave the rest, and I'll see you in the next one.